This is Matthew Cratter from Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about Bitcoin boating accidents. Let's say the IRS shows up at your door and asks you about your Bitcoin. You tell them I lost all my Bitcoin in a boating accident. This is, of course, a great meme, but I want to make sure that you really understand what you're doing when you say something like this so that you and your family don't get wrecked at a later point in time. Here's the classic severe boating accident Bitcoin meme where you lose your hardware wallet in a boating accident or a plane accident or something like this. Now, if you actually are on a boat that sinks with your hardware wallet on it, presumably you still have your 12 or 24 word backup stored somewhere else, preferably on land, maybe stamped into a metal plate, maybe even stored in your head. And so if you have that recovery seed, you can enter it into a new hardware wallet. All of your Bitcoin transaction history and holdings will be available then. Hardware wallets don't store Bitcoin, which is really just a notation on the global ledger. Rather, hardware wallets store your private keys, which is really what confers actual control over your Bitcoin, and you might even say true ownership over your Bitcoin. So hardware wallets store your private keys. If you lose both your hardware wallet and your recovery seed backup, your 12 or 24 word backup, then you can never again sign a transaction to send or spend that Bitcoin. So your Bitcoin is effectively lost forever. That's actually truly losing your Bitcoin. So let's get back to the IRS at your door. Let's say that you bought 10 Bitcoin from a KYC exchange. You give them some US dollars, you give them all your personal information, your driver's license, your address, your social security number. They scan your face. This is the place we've arrived now in the US and most developed countries, unfortunately. And then after you do all of this, they let you buy some Bitcoin. Then you remember not your keys, not your coins, so you ask that exchange to send you your 10 Bitcoin to a fresh receive address that's been generated by your new hardware wallet. That's the smart thing to do so that you don't lose your Bitcoin when your exchange becomes the next Mt. Gox or FTX or Celsius. Now, this is what this might look like on chain. We have an input address on the left here, 54.5 Bitcoin. Let's just pretend that this is being sent by an exchange. I don't have insight into this, but for example, this could be someone receiving their 10 Bitcoin to a freshly generated Bitcoin address right here. So this is the input here. These are all the different outputs. Someone here is getting 10 Bitcoin. If you're finding this video interesting so far, please help to support the channel by spreading the word. Hit the subscribe button, give this video a like, a comment, and a share. So who knows that these 10 Bitcoin right here belong to you? The exchange knows because they know who you are, and they also know that you gave them this Bitcoin address to receive Bitcoin at. Presumably, you're not sending it to a friend. There's a very high probability you're sending it to yourself at that withdrawal address. The exchange also probably or almost certainly reported your purchase to the IRS. This is required by law now in the US and most developed nations, I would guess. If your exchange is like Coinbase, they run their own chain surveillance company, and they use this to collect your data and then sell it to governments and corporations and really anyone who has the money to buy it, I would imagine. So now lots of groups know that this is your Bitcoin sitting at this address right here. This is your 10 Bitcoin. So let's get back to the IRS. You tell them that you lost the keys to your Bitcoin. That's fine. Maybe you did that, but here's the rub. The IRS and other groups will be watching that particular Bitcoin address for the rest of your life. And if the Bitcoin moves, you're going to hear from them. So if we take a look at this address that just received the 10 Bitcoin maybe a day or so ago, it's now been sent out. So there's no longer any Bitcoin sitting at this address. This shows that someone, at least at the point that this was sent, did indeed have the keys and was able to sign a transaction moving this Bitcoin. Therefore, these keys were definitely not lost in a boating accident. So if you say that your keys were lost in a boating accident and the IRS or whoever knows that the Bitcoin in that particular address is associated with you, if that Bitcoin then ever moves later in history, expect another knock on your door from the IRS. You can tell them that maybe a scuba diver found your hardware wallet and moved the Bitcoin, but it's unlikely they're going to believe those kind of dog ate my homework kinds of stories. Maybe you've already escaped to Antarctica at that point on your private jet. Maybe you'll be luckier or smarter than billionaire Roger Ver, who was just arrested in Spain for selling some Bitcoin through an American corporation back in 2018 or so, not reporting the proceeds to the IRS, even though he had already paid an exit tax and was no longer a U.S. resident or citizen. They were watching him on chain, and he was just arrested yesterday. I agree with Samson here. I have no love for Roger Ver, also known as the Bitcoin Jesus, who really became more of a Bitcoin Judas Iscariot. I have no love for the guy, but I certainly won't celebrate his misfortune, and I wish him the best in his difficult journey. One of the great ironies is he did make a video responding to one of my videos about him, telling me that Bitcoin University needed a history lesson on Bitcoin. It was really surreal for me actually to see this online, see this response from him. So the general conclusion here is that Bitcoin voting accidents don't work. Is the solution to buy Monero instead? Absolutely not, for various reasons, which I cover in this video, that Monero is a hot potato money. The basic idea is that people don't want to hodl Monero, and so a circular economy can never develop around it. So even though Monero supports very private transactions, if you need to move into a different currency like BTC, like Bitcoin, in order to preserve your purchasing power before you get ready to spend in Monero, you are going to lose a lot of purchasing power. And so this can never develop as its own standalone currency. It's always going to be dependent on Bitcoin. And as you move back and forth between Monero and Bitcoin, you can have the potential to leak quite a bit of privacy. So it's much better to stay within a certain coin. Is the solution to Bitcoin voting accidents in this whole dilemma by non-KYC Bitcoin? I'd say possibly, but you should know that you're still legally obligated in the US and most places to report anytime you sell this Bitcoin or spend it on goods and services, and then pay any capital gains taxes on the profits, basically the difference between your cost basis and the price at which you spent or sold that Bitcoin for fiat. The FBI is watching these non-KYC services very closely now. I'm not sure as a private individual you can get in trouble using them. I think they're just trying to scare people off, but this is something to be quite aware of. I think the people who end up getting in trouble are the ones running these services rather than the ones using it, but this is something to be quite aware of, and you don't want to mess with the US government. The US plantation is actually quite large and extends across much of the planet at this point. Let's hope that Bitcoin can fix this little issue as well. But until then, please be careful on boats, be careful on land, be careful in the air. Uncle Sam is watching you. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.